What do you think this place means to your dad?
I think to my dad, it's not a place of business as much as it is a legacy that he's created for his family.
He did the power sports, power equipment distribution, actually up in Pennsylvania. And he was a part of a family business as well. He decided that this is what he was passionate about, and this is the foundation that he wanted to build on.
The more challenging it was, the more he put his heart and soul into it.
I think this place is a legacy to Dad.
Legacy. Well, born and raised in Pennsylvania. I lived there until I was about 30, 31. I was involved in my family business there, but it was a cool place to grow up. 4 seasons, obviously, as we got to experience spring, fall, winter. Used to be a big winter guy. I used to enjoy snow skiing. We were in the snowmobile business, so I enjoyed snowmobile racing, as well as the distribution network we had with Polaris snowmobiles. In my mid-20s, I kind of got the boating bug. I think I inherited it from my dad. But bought my first boat when I was 23. I actually drove down here to Florida to buy it and took it back to Pennsylvania. Once I was really passionate about boating, and I wanted to do it more. So I started thinking about, wouldn't it be cool to own a marina? Started looking at those opportunities in Pennsylvania and Maryland and Delaware, New Jersey. And the seasonality was just killed the business. It was tough. So I started looking further and further south through the Carolinas, and eventually landed here in good old Mount Dora, Florida, back in 1989.
How do you even find a marina for sale in the
Wall Street Journal.
Wall Street Journal.
Advertised in Wall Street Journal. And as far as finding it, since we didn't have Google Maps, good old Rand McNally roadmap. Had a book, all 50 states, A20. There it was. Originally built in 1970. Prior to that was an old fish camp. The structure we're in now, the office building, and the docks were built in 71, 72. That was kind of the configuration of the marina through the 70s and most of the 80s. In 1987, the high drive building was built. All was completed in 1988, and then I came along and bought it in 1989. First thing I remember thinking, wow, this place is really in the boonies. Because back then, Mount Dora was considered on the outer part of the frontier. So, I mean, you had everything happening down in Orlando. Apopka was even probably as far north as civilization existed. So Mount Dora was really out there. That hour and a half ride from the airport to here, I got to see a lot of Central Florida, areas that I've never experienced before. Because I'd been to Central Florida many times, big Disney fan. So I was here when they opened the park in 72, but never ventured this far north. So that was different. It was a lot different part of Florida than I'd been used to. So I remember thinking, this is really out there. This is in the boonies.
Did that scare you any, encourage you any?
I wasn't smart enough to figure that out because I hadn't been in the boating business. I was in the outdoor power equipment business. So I had run a distributorship. We'd had product lines like wheel, horse, lawn, garden tractors, Echo power equipment, Polaris snowmobiles, Polaris ATVs. So my experience was more on the wholesale level, establishing dealer organizations, providing them with product and marketing to help them sell the product through to consumers. Right. So this was my first retail adventure, as well as my dipping my toe into the marine business, which was terribly ill-timed. Boating business, if you look at its history, was on a roll right through the 80s. 1988 was the pinnacle. That was when the industry built and sold more boats than it did in its entire history, over 500,000 units. In '89, it started to turn south. That was kind of like the first downturn. In 90, 91, 92, we had kind of a recession, which further hit the business. So it was really ill-timed. I mean, because of the boating business being on such a tear, you know, the prices for boats and the prices for marinas and all that kind of stuff was high. So I bought high, what would have been considered high back in 1989.
Do you remember what you paid for it?
$1.4 million back in '89. I was kind of an absentee owner at the beginning. Made the purchase, but I made this my home. Hired a manager to run this business, but I was still pretty much involved with the business up north. So my schedule for 2 years after I purchased the marina was I would get on an airplane Monday morning, fly to Pittsburgh, which is where we had based the business at that time. I'd be there till Thursday night, fly here Thursday night, and I'd be here Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. So that was the schedule I had for about 2 years, flying back and forth between here and Pennsylvania. It wasn't until I decided that I was going to sell out my interests in that business up north to make this my full-time occupation, and it was '91. And that was due to the fact things were getting pretty slow. You know, some things had to change. The place couldn't afford a manager anymore.
What point did you kind of make a switch where you were like, I'm going to be the marina. This is going to be mine?
92.
Why 92?
I'd met Susan. We're getting pretty serious. And that long-distance relationship just wasn't going to work out to be a long-term relationship. And like I said, the business was struggling, and the business up north was struggling as well. So it was just time to, make a decision. And I'm not sure the business up north wasn't suffering because of my divided attentions. So that's why I made a decision. Okay, let's focus on one thing and one thing only, and that's how I made my decision. When it came to running the business, the acclimation from wholesale to retail was a little bit different. What was interesting is that back in Pennsylvania with my dealer organization, I had started a program, we called it Edge of Vacation. And we would bring dealers to Orlando as a sales incentive spiff. But we also would kind of pepper in some training. A little bit of product training, but a lot of sales and marketing training. It was interesting for me to take, what we had been preaching as far as how to run a great marketing program, in the late 80s. How to really put together a great yellow page advertising program.
That's something crazy. Yeah.
So then that's what we had been teaching. Then to bring that knowledge down here and actually apply it. Some of the things that we had been preaching were very, very relevant and worked well. Some of them were just absolutely nonsense. That was a revelation. Thinking, okay, well, at the time I thought everything we were teaching was just, this is it. It wasn't quite the case in practical application.
What's been the most rewarding thing owning the marina?
The fact that my family could grow up here. This is the kind of business that it doesn't require a real formal setting. The kids could come and go anytime they wanted to. Fish, jump off the dock roofs. It was just a really great place for kids to grow up. And I got a lot of satisfaction out of watching it. And I mean, it's even relative today. I mean, they still have a real affinity for this place. And it's why they'll be taking over here. It's kind of cliche. It is cliche, but it's true. And you know this because you're a boater. Literally, you will make memories of a lifetime, when you're on the water on a boat. Times 100 owning a marina. Because so many of their experiences and so many of the things that they really enjoyed doing as kids happened right here. It's interesting to see my grandson Connor, now growing into the same experiences. Comes home, comes back after school, and first thing he wants to do is go out and say hello to the guys and then, go fishing. It's pretty cool. You can't do that many other places. You can't do that in an office building. So the wonderful part of this business, and the most gratifying, is we get to help people create those memories. That's the basic core of this business. We get people on the water and create the opportunity for those moments to occur. And they will stick then with them for the rest of their lives. Where boating begins is the tagline. And it means two different things. If you're new to boating, This is where you come and we can help you learn. Boating can be very complex. Figuring out, what activities you want to enjoy in the water, how many people. Then trying to figure out, okay, dial in, what's the proper power unit, what's the proper boat that you're going to get the most enjoyment out. All those things are kind of activity driven. And then helping you learn the skills you need to feel comfortable on the water is another important aspect and thing we provide for first-time boat buyers. For people who own boats, the 140 in the high dry and the 94 in the water, this is where their boating journey begins. Each time they go out, and this is where it ends. It's kind of the cool part about it because we get to see them, we can hear about what they did, fish they caught, the flip they talk about the tube, and all that great stuff that just makes it just very memorable.
What do you want your legacy to be?
Legacy. Damn good question. Never really given much thought. I'd like to think that, I'd be remembered for having not only contributed to creating a very viable business here, but a great environment for the kids to grow up and families to come enjoy. Pretty involved with different industry aspects, so I like to give back to the industry that's given so much to me. I guess in some respect, I'd like to be remembered for some of the things I've accomplished on an industry-wide basis. But most importantly, I think what I really like to be remembered by is what Joey and Julie will be able to create from the foundation that I've laid.
That's it.
That's it.
Beautiful.
That's easy.